Cool. So thank you for joining the Diary Sysadmin. Um, I mentioned this before. I don't know what episode this is now. um, but we have Michael. Is it Escamilla?
Escamilla, yep. So I have to go, tell people like, hey, think tortilla, think tortilla. Okay.
That's a good one. Yeah. So I, sometimes I usually have met some people before, but I think like I had just recently met you at MMS, like for the first time, man. So it was, we briefly talked, but it was a pleasure getting to meet you in person.
Yeah, you as well. That was a really cool experience. I've only been to one MMS prior to that, and that was Fort Lauderdale back in October. But like I went with Patch My PC, so I was kind of like on booth duty and stuff. So yeah, being there as a speaker this time, and I kind of tried to network a little more, I think, in that regard. And yeah, being at MMS MOA, it's different for sure for anyone that hasn't been to kind of the second half year versions. Yeah, it's way different. A lot more people.
The headquarters.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So you say you spoke. How many sessions did you have?
I had 5 total.
Wow, five
Yeah,
sessions. Oh my
yeah. I
gosh.
uh I don't recommend anyone for their first time doing 5. Yeah, not gonna lie, I got pretty. I went through some anxiety in April, like leading up to it. It's a challenge. It's a lot of stuff to build up. Luckily, the speakers I went through, I was kind of, I guess, more the co-speaker on a lot of the stuff, but still, there's a ton to put together, and especially not having done it, I haven't really been. I mean, Fort Lauderdale back in October was the first like conference I'd really been to. So like listening to sessions and stuff like that, it was like that's really all I had to go to gauge off of like what content should be and stuff like that. So yeah, that I think that was one of the challenges is like, do I have enough content and is what I have like appropriate or is it too technical, not technical enough? It's kind of that balance, right? And figuring that out.
Yeah, yeah, and especially with five, man. That
Yeah.
is brutal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Luckily one was a happy hour, but
Good, good.
still, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You still have to, perform, because you have a lot of eyeballs on you, you know,
Yeah.
really technical people, maybe people just getting started. So like, as you were saying, what is that middle ground?
Exactly,
You
yeah.
know?
But yeah, it
So,
was good experience. Kind of
mhm.
one thing I think I took from it for sure was like the content can be everywhere. There's going to be some sessions people get super in the weeds, you're staring at code the whole time. Some of them are, a little more on the basic side because I mean that's why people are going there, right? You're having people that learning stuff for the first time. Um but also you could be covering something simple that maybe someone hasn't seen though. Like maybe you're doing it a different way too. So that's I think if I have advice for anyone like trying to speak and stuff like that is just like, well, just just give it a try. Like whatever you're gonna do is gonna be fine. Like someone's gonna get value out of it. Um, I spoke with a coworker, and like our main goal was just like if just one person comes up to us afterwards and like says that was good, like okay, we did it. Yeah.
What were some of the sessions you covered?
Um, my first one I did with my coworker Chris Dalton. We did one called "Where Did That Update Come From?" So being patch my PC, that was kind of like our bread and butter there. Um, so yeah, the whole idea was, you have an unexpected, maybe Windows update hit a machine. Like, how do you troubleshoot that? So we went through, the Windows update log, kind of checking out what registry settings are. And then we kind of finished off with co-management and source scan or scan source and all that, which is that could be like 10 sessions on its own for some people. it but yeah, so that was cool. Um Another one I did with a guy named Frank Lesniak, I think I'm saying his name right. We did one on Copilot Plus PCs. Frank had a really good idea for like, let's cover what they are, the main thing being the MPU on them, doing local AI. But his goal was to try and create like, can we make some kind of model run locally on the AI outside of like kind of what's out there right now. Um, Ultimately, it kinda ended up being like a demo we couldn't finish in time. Frank I mean, I gotta hand it to Frank, man. That guy, super smart, PowerShell guy, like, definitely check out his stuff. Um, but yeah, it just right now the where everything's at and the development and stuff, it's super hard to do. But um, I think we made a good session of it though, because I covered stuff like how do you inventory devices that have these NPUs? I tried to take a sysadmin angle on it. This is how you could see stuff from the Intune side, and enable those enhanced device inventory stuff. I also covered like, well, if you have it co-managed, you can see that stuff in the config manager database. So I really tried to lean in on that side of it. These are the policies you can use to manage it. So yeah, it turned out to be a really good session. Um, yeah, and then the other three I did with David Segura on OSD Cloud. So covering the new OSD workspace, which is the tool used to build the WinPE images, and then we did the new OSD Cloud itself. And then the third session was a happy hour, which I actually got to do with David and Gary Block. Um, which yeah, that was just surreal. I mean, it's the first time I met David in person. I've been working with him last several months just remotely. Um, First time seeing Gary in person too, and it was just like, man, like these it's cool. That's what I thought was really cool about MMS is just like you're meeting these people that you're like, man, these are legends, right? And you're just I try not to be fanboy out too much about it, um but yeah, no, it's cool being to meet people in person for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and those two guys are just absolutely, awesome, awesome dudes,
Yeah.
David and Gary, just awesome guys.
Yeah.
But you did mention OSC Cloud. How did because I think you are like a contributor or like help out in some way. How did you get started with that?
Yeah, I think David and Gary say I'm part of the OSD Cloud team. I kind of refer to myself as the intern for now. Just but yeah, so I mean for me it was I heard about OSD Cloud just, being online and kind of seeing what things are out there on Reddit. Um and kind of at the same time during the pandemic and stuff, it was like trying to image stuff remotely. My last organization had a ton of retail stores that kind of came in handy for us. Um, but I also leaned into using it through Config Manager, which seems a little untraditional, but what's nice about it is you don't have to manage a WIM file. I mean, Microsoft's made it easier in recent years, right? You can go download the latest monthly one, but you still got to download it, put it in a config manager. Um, for me, I just liked setting up OSD Cloud in a task sequence, and we just image straight from there. It's always going to download the latest version. We can apply updates that way, do everything else you can do. So that's how I kind of did it. At the same time, we were going Intune autopilot. Well, we would actually just use the task sequence from config manager and go straight to autopilot. So we would OSD cloud it, go into autopilot. And so at one point I was like, I should just for one, I was like, I want to give back to the community more. That was kind of the first thing. It's like I've spent so many years just like consuming stuff. I was like, I got to put some stuff out there. So I started a blog, just started throwing some stuff up there. It was kind of around how I was using it and OSD Cloud and Config Manager. And then I did a few posts about using the Get Windows Autopilot info script and just kind of how you could use that and stuff. And then around that time, Gary, that's when he kind of picked up on contributing and he added a bunch of HP functions, which at my last org, we were HP shop. So I was like, okay, this is awesome. And I really wanted to know how it worked. Like what did he actually add in there and how it worked? So I was like, you know what, I should just write some blog posts, about how the code works and stuff. So I kind of just started breaking it down um and wrote that there and uh, around that time is when I applied to patch my PC to be a customer engineer. So I kind of I had like three parts. My goal is to do like four parts to this like HP integration in it. I did three parts. I started working on a fourth, and then that's when I got the job at Patch. So I kind of took a little break, and then towards Thanksgiving last year, I had a little extra time one day, and I was like, I got to finish part four here. Um, Finished it up, posted it, I think on Black Friday, and then David hit me up that Saturday, just DM'd me on Twitter, which was
Yeah.
I was out eating with my family, and I'm like checking my phone, and I was like, "What the heck? I have a DM from David Segura." And yeah, he was just like, "Hey man, like that you're, contributing back. Would you like to speak?" at some conferences and stuff, and I was just like, yeah, like let's go, man.
Heck
Like
yeah.
however I can give back and stuff. So that that's kind of how it started. And so from there it was just between working with him, you know, Patch My PC, they're heavily, they're like Recast, right? You guys, put out a lot of stuff as well. And so they want us to contribute and do what we can in the community as well. So between those two things, it was like, all right, like, I think I have a shot to, kind of get myself out there and see what I can give back. And since then too, it's kind of I've been hanging out on the Win Admins Discord as well, just trying to, you know, just help out any way you can, like you see a question you know the answer to, it's like just throw an answer there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no man. I I was like, who is Michael? Just like you kind of came out of nowhere. I was like,
Yeah.
this guy's providing some gold nuggets out there, man. So I've been seeing your work. It's awesome. What's uh, it's Michael the admin? Is that
Michael
the is
yeah,
what's what
michaeltheadmin.com. Yeah.
michaeltheadmin.com. Okay. That's where people can find your blog post.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah. And yeah, it was just kind of around I just wanted to put some stuff there, hopefully for myself too. Like I've been telling myself even this last couple months, I was like, I gotta just write even really short blog posts. Like,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's like, even if it's just like, hey, I found this command today. This is what I did with it. I feel like I need to do that a little more because sometimes it's like you kind of forget stuff. Like, I hate having to relearn stuff a bunch of times.
It's
You
like
could just
your
go
own
back.
it's like your own dictionary, It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
what did I do that I need to do again? It's like, okay, I'm just gonna go to my website.
Yeah. Exactly.
So before this era, I think your first job, I kind of looked it up. I think it was like in the manufacturing world, like an IT support specialist.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got started at a comp- yeah. So yeah, I got started at a company called Raycor. They are a sub company of a Fortune 500 called Parker Hannifin. Yeah, the Parker does all kinds of stuff. They're a huge company. So my dad actually worked for the company Raycor, and they used to do a thing during the summer where they would hire certain employees like kids to come like work at the factory. So I did a summer there working on the manufacturing line, putting stuff together. So I kind of met a few people there. And then the next summer, they were looking for an intern in the IT department. And at that time, I had switched gears from trying to do a CS degree to a CIS, so like the information systems one. Um, and so yeah, it's kind of using your connections, right? And my dad just being one, he was able to kind of get me in there, and that's where I started. I mean, that's where I learned just everything, like Active Directory. Um, the big thing they wanted at the time was they weren't doing any imaging. Uh, the main corporation Parker had SSM set up. They were on 2007 at the time. Um, and so they started setting stuff up for like all the little divisions and stuff. And so yeah, I kind of got in there, used what they already had. They had like some Windows 7 images and stuff. And so it was like, okay, like let's build our own task sequence, put our own apps in there that we have for our division. And yeah, so that's kind of where I started doing that. Um, and it was a cool job. Like that's where I owe like a lot of my first roots of stuff, and that's where I learned. I think it was kind of cool being at that point because the corporation was so big. Like I said, it was like I think in the North America they had like 50,000 users. I'm not
Wow.
I'm not actually sure how many endpoints they had total, but they had a really clean uh OU structure, the way they did all their networking and stuff. And
Nice.
so that's kind of where I really like I learned how like a naming scheme and stuff like that is really important. So I kind of took that from that job to my next one, and I was always looking at like what are we gonna do when we build this out if we're 50,000 users later, you know? And so I always kind of take that mindset into it. I try to not do it as much later in my career because I kind of realize that like, well, sometimes you can over engineer things that you just gotta kind of get out there. But it's always in the back of my mind. I always kind of think that I'm not trying not to randomly name servers and stuff whenever I can.
It's
Yeah.
funny that you mentioned that because I was just scrolling on Twitter, and some guy said he was like, I read across a company that literally took naming servers and stuff like as a joke. He's like, but they literally named all their servers as like some sort of dog, like a K9. I'm like, that is just
Nice.
crazy. Um,
And I think for at a certain point, like it probably works okay, but if you're trying to scale like a server farm of stuff, you're like that's you're gonna hit some walls there at some point. Yeah.
I, but that's a great mindset to take, or have learned from the get go. It helps
Yeah.
you with best practices, a good structure, you know. It kind of sets you up a little bit, structures you for a little bit for a better like success moving forward, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, and from there, I mean, what was really cool there too is that we were a small team as well. Um, there was, I think, one person at each site. The site I was at was kind of the main one that was where majority of the IT department was. Um, but as far as like my leadership there, it was like my direct boss and stuff, very hands off. And I think that I'm a very like go get it kind of attitude person. It's just like if someone just says we need this, it's like I'll figure it out. And so having that hands off kind of leadership is like I thrive in that because it's like I'm gonna figure out whatever it is you need me to do. Um and I think I work great in that environment. I think the one thing, even in my next job and stuff where majority of my career's been, was like I I'm trying to take an approach myself of trying to get a little more mentorship in just some places that I know I can. Because I know not everyone works that way. Like that's not the best way for them to learn. And I do feel like if I had someone probably mentoring me at the same time, I probably could have like taken off a little quicker. Um, but yeah, so far the two main jobs I've had, it's like it's kind of been that way. And I've just made the most of it. I think is kind of the best way to put it for that.
So you're at this first company. How does that next transition look like for the next job? Are you like, you know, ready to take something else on? Like you're like, let's try a different challenge.
Um, it kind of just came out of I one of my really good friends now, Tim Reiner. I ended up working with him at the next job. I met him like a year before I got the next job, and he basically randomly reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, like we're hiring over here. It paid way more. Um, the company was a lot younger and stuff like that." And I was like, you know what? Like, I think it's time to. I had like just moved out with that. At the time, my girlfriend, but like she's now my wife and stuff, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, I need to make more money anyway, like, let's give this a try." Um, so yeah, I applied, got the job, and then that it was a really good step for me, at that time. I was going into a help desk job. I think they quickly changed my title to, like, system engineer at the time, but yeah, I basically left managing, just that couple small sites. We were on SSCM 2007 when I left that prior job. And then this new job, they had just hired a contractor, someone to set up uh 2012, config manager 2012. And they basically none of them were touching it. They were just like, "Hey, we need to be able to image devices, start controlling them." So the site was spun up and it was just like, "All right," like I got in there and just started doing stuff and figured out I hadn't touched 2012 at the time, so it was just like, yeah, just learning that and kinda took it from there, and so, yeah, I dealt with the same server for the next 10 years, just upgrading it through current branch and all that, and, did in-place upgrades on the server OS and stuff, and, so yeah, that was a pretty good experience there.
So you
Um,
kind of took ownership of that essentially.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then the current sysadmin that was, like, above me, he left after a year or so, and I just was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna take over everything he did." Started doing that and took that mindset I said from the previous company. It was like, the OU structure was kind of over the place. Naming scheme was just non-existent. Um, so yeah, I tried to put all that in there, and that was a time that it really worked out because it was like I ended up being there for 10 years, and like setting that early on, like really helped us like later on setting those standards and stuff. Um, but yeah, it was just 10 years of just learning 2012 up to what it is now, and like um, learning the task sequences, just oh man, it's such a ride. Like everything you have to learn, and then eventually going in Intune and co-management, and um, yeah, yeah, it was just it was a good time there.
And that was in the retail space, right? That job they were.
Yeah, yeah. So they were a clothing company. It was called 511 Tactical. They primarily make clothing for like concealed carry stuff. It was a cool space to be in. I got to go to a couple conventions. One was like Shot Show that's in Vegas. Um, so yeah, we eventually started opening retail stores. So then that was a challenge in itself, like managing stuff. And yeah, the team that I had there was amazing. Like we were really close. Um, a lot of the a lot of us were in up here in Northern California, a little south of Sacramento, and then we had a office down in Southern California. So we had some IT starting to go down there. Majority of the infrastructure team, which is what I was on, were in NorCal, and yeah, just a good group. Like the entire time I was there for 10 years, our infrastructure team didn't increase by a single person.
Wow, wow.
So everything we did was always like, how can we manage this at scale, right? Like I know by the time I left, it was like we were getting questioned, like, why are we spending so much money on these certain tools? And it's like, because we haven't hired anyone. Like
Yeah, yeah.
if you don't want to hire anyone, we need these tools to do this job. So it was like, especially with the retail stores, it was like, can we cloud manage these things? Like, how do we, we don't want to VPN every site back in and all that. And uh, yeah, so it was those challenges. Like, how do we do the most with like as little as we have? And so that's kind of where the tagline came from on my blog too. Is just like sysadmin of too much or something like that. I forget what I put because it also turned into like we were managing everything. It's like security cameras. We
Oh
had,
man.
but really we were just split up between help desk, system administration, and the networking team. And just between us three, it's like we were managing all this stuff we shouldn't. Like from the security side, and it's like having to help manage the stupid controller that manages the fans in the warehouse and just it's like this goes beyond our scope. And then anyone that runs a ticketing system or IT, like you're always getting the tickets for like the handle on the toilet flusher it's just like not working and you're just like, come on, what's going on here?
It's funny, man. It's funny the things that you run into. Um, I'm sure like in your 10 years, it wasn't just managing devices. You probably were managing other things in that realm too. I remember when I worked at a university when I was first getting started. We did the security cameras for the campus. I'm like, this
Hmm.
isn't. We probably shouldn't be doing this, but who else? you
I
know?
know it. I felt like we got to see a lot of stuff we probably shouldn't, like you said, just because like HR comes over like we need to see what happened here, and you're like, okay, like we always had
Yeah.
some good gossip going around and stuff.
No, it's a fun field, man, and it's always something different. It's always, especially like being in it, you're like this thing's always changing. Even though it's not huge, but there's like always these small tweaks that are
Yeah.
whether it's the UI, some features, some functionality.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know a lot of people talk about it, but that's where, if you don't like change, like sysadmin's just not where, like, that's not a job for you. It's like
Yeah.
we're constantly learning, you know, buttons are moving all around all the time, especially with the cloud stuff now, you know, our icons are getting updated. It's just like, it's always changing from that aspect, but then also like behind the scenes of that stuff too, right? Like infrastructure behind that changes a lot. And it's like, if you're not keeping up, like you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely,
And not
absolutely.
just yourself, but like your company's going to, which is also going to make it worse for you. It's a constant learning battle. And that's where I've like tried to turn and like try to give back to the community as much because it's like that's the only way I've been able to learn. It's like following everyone else's blogs and the content that gets put out there. I think it's really important. I think because otherwise you can't just be looking out for yourself in this like our community here because it just we'll all fail that way if we do.
Oh yeah, yeah. And people write blogs like in an entertaining way, like yours. Like you have some entertaining like pictures and like your blog style. Like I think that's important because it's making learning in a different style and like a little more approachable.
Right,
Because
yeah.
the Microsoft documentation is great, but it's just like a words, right?
It's dry, yeah.
There's no funny pictures. There's no like people's actual character to it. So I think that's what I think people in the community who do, like write blogs, like videos, like Steve Weiner,
Oh yeah.
dude has an amazing YouTube channel and
Yeah.
just right like making funny elements like that. Right, it's like okay, I'm learning something, but it's also like an entertaining aspect to it.
Yeah, and it's like some people just have it, like Steve, you could tell it's just he may not have thought it at first, but like it's turned out like his stuff's really good. Um yeah, like I also think too, like regardless of how you if someone's out there wanting to like write a blog post or something, like I think you should do it because we all kind of do it in a different way. And that was kind of my thought was like I can read a blog post, but sometimes I've got to read it multiple times because I'm not really getting it the way that they're displaying the info. So it's like I could probably write this in a different way, and maybe that could help someone else too. So I think like people shouldn't get too shy about like, well, I feel like I'm copying this other person's content. And it's like, well, maybe you are, but you're probably doing it in a different way, which means you're probably going to help someone else like understand it. And I think that's important too.
Absolutely, and then it helps you learn it, right? Because if you're talking about it, you kind of have to
Exactly.
you got to know what's going on.
Yeah. And yeah, my big thing that I've tried to like teach other people and stuff is I I like to know how things work. Like I don't like I think it's important to really know what you're doing, um, not just how to do something. Because if you know what you're doing, you know how to fix it later. If you're just I forgot who was on recently about being just a button clicker admin. Like, that like if something breaks, you're not gonna know how to fix it. If you're just clicking buttons and just this is how I do this one thing. It's like if you know what you're doing, that's I think the most important thing because then you can take that and apply it in a different way, maybe somewhere else. And so yeah, I've always tried to instill that in whoever I've worked with is just like what like know what you're doing. I don't really care how you're doing it. Just what are you doing? Yeah, that's kind of been a big thing for me.
Did you have any mentors or anybody like kind of champion you along your route inside of your IT journey?
Uh, Not a ton. Like I said, I kind of wish I did have something like that. I think I kind of do now, honestly, with like David, just working with him. Like I've learned like so much from him just in like the last like 5 6 months. We've been kind of chatting and stuff. But before that, like that's kind of why I tried when I started managing people at my last org. Like I tried to be that way as much as I could. Um, just because I feel like you can elevate people elevate much quicker that way. I tried to keep that hands-off nature about things, just kind of adapt as needed. I will say though, I don't necessarily like managing people. I kind of did it out of necessity, but I don't have to manage anyone now, so that's cool. Um, but yeah, managing my last team though was super easy. The guys were awesome and didn't really have to do anything that bad. So yeah.
So you're based out of the West Coast, California area, right?
Yeah, Central Valley here in the middle of the almond orchards. Yeah, east of San Francisco here.
So do you get some cold weather out there?
Just cold enough to be annoying. No snow, no real ice. Fog's kind of I think the worst thing we get, especially driving out in the country here. But and then in the summer though it gets pretty hot. Like we'll multiple 100-degree days and stuff. Kind of that dry California heat. But yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, where I'm at here, there's not a ton to do directly here, but we're kind of in that spot in California where it's like everything's like, within an hour and a half. Could be in the beach in a couple hours or go to the mountains within an hour or something. So,
What are some of your
yeah.
favorite spots out there that you visited recently?
Um, my brother lives out in Santa Cruz area, so we go visit him occasionally. That's always nice, right there by the beach and stuff. Um, I like SoCal a lot just for the food. There's so much food down there. Um, Kind of where I'm at up here, there's just a ton of. It's all just chain restaurants and stuff. I I feel like the unique spots don't last down here or like where I'm at. but yeah, in SoCal's cool for the food for sure. And then recently with kids, it's like we were going down there, taking our daughter to like Disneyland and stuff. So that kind of reprised like wanting to go to the parks a little more. Uh, but as a kid, we mountain biked a lot, so I was always up in the mountains, kind of in just a little bit up north here. We'd go to Lake Tahoe and stuff a bunch. A big thing we did every summer was go to Mammoth Mountain, which is mostly east from here, about southeast from here. That was a huge thing we did. We went to that every summer. Went mountain biking on the mountain, and then kind of my high school years, we ended up kind of transitioning to dirt bikes. Started doing that a lot. Uh, so yeah, I haven't ridden quite a bit recently with since the kids have been here, but yeah, that was a huge thing for my like through the 20s, like my 20s and stuff. We rode dirt bikes a lot.
Did you like, travel around, or was it just mainly like local?
It's always like a couple hour drive. We're like trying to go somewhere. Nothing actually we can do around here locally. So it was always like kind of picking up and driving somewhere. So yeah, that was been a huge thing. We transitioned to kind of like watching the dirt bike guys, the racing, super motocross and stuff. Um, so yeah, that's basically the only sport I watch now is just super motocross. And watching that circuit. I played baseball a ton. I used to be a big Giants fan. I just like I don't know. I just don't have time for it anymore. Keeping up with sports just not really my priority anymore.
Yeah, like
Other
two
than
2 hours just go by and you're like, what did I just watch?
yeah, yeah. I with some family we've been trying to go to at least a Giants game in the summer, at least one. So I enjoy going to the park, especially the Giants stadium's like amazing. Um, so yeah, I like watching it. I'll go watch it for a game. But yeah, like keeping up all season, 162 games. I'm just like I don't have time for this. Yeah, I have Microsoft Docs to read.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
literally. Man. So you're pretty big into motocross. Do you keep up with that? Um like I don't know how that professional sport is. Is it like seasonal? Is it like do they do it all year?
They pretty much all year. They're off kind of at the very end, like November, December, but the core of it starts in January, and then they do what they call their indoor racing, which is where they race inside the football and baseball stadiums. So that's from January to like the beginning of May. Um, it's almost every Saturday is what it. So they race on Saturdays is the thing. And then in May is when they transition to the outdoor tracks. So these are the ones that are kind of cut into the land and stuff. So that goes from May to the end of August, just about. Um, and so yeah, they actually do come and race. They used to race in Oakland. That's kind of gone away now that like both the A's and Raiders aren't there anymore. So like 2 years ago, oh, was it 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago they went back and raced at the Giant Stadium. Um, so we actually went there, took my daughter. The son was I don't know, like not even 6 months at that time. Luckily, he did great. He slept most of the time just in my wife's arms. But my daughter loved it. Like she likes watching it with me on Saturdays and stuff. So that's cool. And then they do an outdoor race up by Sacramento. We went to one a couple years ago on that, but the summer ones are always they're either just blazing hot or it's like pouring rain. So it's like bringing the kids. I'm like, okay, I think we're gonna wait a few more years before we attempt to bring the kids back out because it's a day for sure. It's an all day thing, and it's like when they're that young, they need to nap in the middle of the day, and it's like, yeah. But when you got like dirt bikes racing around, it's like, yeah, they're not going to nap with that.
Yeah, it's like let's avoid the storm if we
Yeah,
can.
exactly. Yeah.
So do you pick up the dirt bike at all, or you're just a observer at this point?
Right now, I'm an observer. Yeah. The plan will be when the kids are getting a little older here, which my daughter actually is. Uh, she has like an electric bike, that she can ride now. And she's actually picked it up just in the last like month here, like really well. So I'm kind of excited about that because I'm like, okay, the next couple of years here, it's like I think we'll start getting back into it. I think so for sure.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
And that's a unique sport. I mean, it's it's I'm trying to say it like nicely. It is tough. Like I
it
I would
is.
be
Yeah,
so scared. I'd be like, man. I'm a wuss though. I would I'd be like, ah.
It's one of those sports that kind of looks easy because you're like, well, you got a motor under your legs doing stuff, but it's like you got to hold on, and that's the tough part is like just holding on while this thing's trying to like pull away from you. Um, but no, it's fun. Like I said, I was mountain biking since I was like 4 years old, so like being on two wheels was always like that's just was kind of my thing. So I really want to get back into it, but I think the next step in my life is like doing it with my kids now and stuff.
Absolutely, man. So, do you remember the last time you were like on a course or like just going at it full throttle?
Oh, man, it's probably like 5 years ago at this point. Yeah. Well, actually, okay, it was like 2019. I think it was like right before the pandemic. I did a ride with my dad. Um, we did these ones called dual sports where they'll basically it's where you ride like they're dirt bikes that are street legal, so you can kind of go on and off road, and they'll put these rides on that they could be pretty long rides and maybe like overnight as well. So basically, you have your map and you follow the map out in this course and stuff, and so um, yeah, I think that was the last time I was doing that, probably back in 2019. So I gotta get back into it. I know it's gonna be more tough though. My body's starting to feel a little more sore now, and
You wake up, you're like, ah,
yeah,
damn.
exactly.
Oh man. So was it this at Fort Lauderdale then? Was your first time speaking then? Like officially?
Uh, I didn't speak there. I just attended.
Okay, okay, yep, sorry.
Yeah.
So
So
this
yeah,
MS
this was the
this
first time speaking. Yeah, at anything really. Well, David and I did do a preview at the Northwest System Center user group. Yeah, I was trying to get the acronyms right. Yeah. Um, yeah, we did that one. I remotely presented from here. David was there in person, so I did that. Uh, but as far as in person speaking at a conference, yeah, the MMSMO was yeah, that was my first time. So like I said, I don't recommend anyone doing 5 sessions the first time. Um, but I'm glad I did it though. Like it was a good experience for sure.
yeah, there's no better way than to learn than, go through 5 sessions.
Just yeah, just getting in there and doing it. Yeah.
Oh man. So, having been in IT for a while now, like what are some things that excite you about IT? Like maybe, like I'm sure you've heard like people talk about AI or some different other elements. Like for me, some things that excite me are like some of the frameworks for Mac OS management.
Yeah.
Like DDM is one. To me, it's just like it's called declarative device management. It's like a quick synchronization. I can't fully understand it, but it's crazy. But what about you, man? What about you? What are some things that excite you?
I need to get in on the Mac side a little more. Um, I at my prior org we had Jamp, and I had a guy Levi that managed all that, and so I was kind of happy to just let him do his thing. We would coordinate on stuff if we had to, but I know Microsoft's they're trying to stay in it quite a bit, and I like that they're doing that. Um, so yeah, I kind of I need to mess around with that a little more. I don't you know being at patch now, I don't really need to, but we have some tools coming out and stuff for Mac now, so it's like I need to familiarize myself a little better with that. Um, that and just like I don't know. I'm just trying to learn everything, especially now. Like being at Patch and stuff. I'm surrounded by a lot of really good people there, and so I feel like I have a lot of resources to reach out to for stuff. Um, PowerShell. I'm just trying to keep up on that. I mean, that's always fun. It's just you could do anything with it, right? So it's like just trying to like learn a bunch about that. Um, but with working with David and like the OSD Cloud stuff, we've really gotten into utilizing VS Code a lot. Um, trying to mesh the new OSD workspace with using the GitHub Copilot and like building the workspace around that. So as far as AI goes, like that's kind of the big one I've been using is GitHub Copilot, which I think it works great. Like I really like it. Um, definitely trying to leaning into that more. Um, yeah, other than that, I don't know. I just like read everything I can on Twitter and anyone's blogs. I try and keep up on it, so I at least kind of read about it. But Other than that, yeah, I mean, in recent time, it's just been OSD Cloud. I've just been working with David on that. That's kind of consumed a lot of my time. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Is there anything like outside of like IT that that you enjoy watching? Maybe it's like some sort of like other YouTube channels or podcasts or like even Netflix series. You know what to kind of get your mind out outside of IT?
Yeah, so I consume a lot of YouTube. I'm especially in the maker stuff. So like a big thing I was doing for a long time too was like 3D printing. I've like built some 3D printers, stuff like that. That kind of led me down, watching people that do 3D printing stuff. So there's channels out there that I watch, like 3D Printing Nerd, um, stuff like that. That got me over to like watching like Tested, with Adam Savage and stuff, um, and then now like I watch a ton of like William Osman on YouTube. He's kind of in there with the Backyard Scientists, Now Red. So I consume a lot of that stuff, and then of course watch stuff like Mark Rober, Veritasium, and stuff. So a lot of the maker and science channels, I've been consume a ton of that. Um,
It's
and
good
then from
content.
there, it is, yeah, I love it because I'm always just trying to learn stuff, and so I like watching them. And then from there, like Linus Tech Tips. For me, I like watching because it kind of keeps me grounded in like the consumer space of stuff. I don't build computers, never have, but I like kind of just hearing and seeing them build ridiculous things and that kind of stuff. So I like watching them because feel like it keeps me grounded to the other side of our tech.
Yes,
Um, it's like I
the everyday tech.
the everyday tech, yeah. So that's always cool to watch that stuff. And then I haven't in recent years, and the kids have really gotten in the way of stuff, but uh, like the pandemic kind of ruined going to the movie theaters. I haven't really since that, and then having kids, I haven't really gotten back. But that was the thing I used to do all the time. It was like whatever the new big movie was out that week, it was like going to watch. So whether it was like the Marvel stuff, I was like heavily into that kind of until recent years. Like I haven't even seen the last two movies now. Um, like super into that. Any kind of the superheroes, Star Wars franchise stuff, like I was watching all that. So that was always kind of my escape, kind of going and watching that stuff.
Especially movies, right? Like you have to tune in. Like there is
Yeah,
nothing else going on. Especially if you're in a movie theater, like you have
yeah,
to zone in.
yeah. And it's hard for me to not like a movie, especially when Star Wars was getting kind of bad and stuff. I'm like, I'm just here, like just more content. Like I just want to watch stuff. So, um, although some of it got a little bad, but I was just like, no, I just enjoying watching it. I like the expansion of the universe, even if it gets a little ridiculous. It's like I just like the thought of other stuff going on in these universes and stuff. So um, that's why like I'm still in it for all the Marvel stuff. I just don't have the time to like necessarily keep up with it, but I'm still going to watch everything they put out. So yeah,
Man, I can kind of agree with you on the movies. Like I recently started going to movie theaters with my fiance. We go to this concept where every Thursday you show up and you don't know what the movie is. So it's
oh,
just like
nice.
it's
Okay,
a secret movie every Thursday. I the first couple were like some old school movies. So yeah, that's fine, whatever. But
yeah,
some we watched one recently that it was The Field of Dreams. I think it was like the baseball
okay,
movie. I was like, man, this
yeah,
is an awesome movie.
yeah,
But it's fun to have that like surprise element. Like, oh, this is awesome.
yeah. Especially for content like that, it's like they're probably going to show a good movie, so it's just like yeah, kind of getting out there. Yeah, that's what I haven't done too much though. I haven't gotten out of my space of movies. Even when I was going a ton, it was always just, you know, Mission Impossible or like whatever the new one's out and stuff like that. I don't really get out of my zone of my movies, um but yeah, it's always good to see a good movie from something else.
Absolutely, yeah. Any podcasts that you listen to?
Let's see. I listen to like a bunch of other like some kind of health ones and stuff, but like there's one like Darknet Diaries. I'm always like listening to that one. That one's really cool. Mm. I think there's this other one. It's by the guy that co-founded tested.com. Oh, it's called Brad and Will Make a Tech Pod. That one's really cool. I like what listening to that one. But yeah, other than that, I think those are kind of the main ones I listen to at this point.
they're kind of nice, right? Because you could just kind of set them and do something in the background if you're doing laundry or washing dishes.
Oh, and actually, I kind of forgot their podcast because I tend to watch them on YouTube. But Marcus Brownlee's the Waveform podcast that they do, um, and that one's funny because they always joke about everyone's listening to this doing dishes, and that's like literally every time I'm listening to them, I'm doing the dishes. So, um, and then with Linus Tech Tips, they do the WAN show every Friday. But I kind of forget it's a podcast because I typically watch it on
On
YouTube.
YouTube.
So yeah, that's true. So yeah, those are two big ones. Also, I listen to every week. So yeah,
Man, I think the dishwasher is probably one of the best in what do you call it?
inventions.
Inventions
Yeah.
made. I'm like, I don't know how.
Well, I don't have one.
Oh no.
So so yeah, we uh we live in a super small house. It's like a thousand square feet on a good day. And a chunk of that's the garage, which is detached from the house. Um there's probably somewhere I could put a dishwasher if I really wanted to put one in, but yeah, for the last 10 years living here, we've been hand washing dishes, and with two kids now, it's getting rough. We're Yeah, we're definitely wanting to move here, and that's gonna be on the list is, like, there's a dishwasher at this house, right? Like, yeah.
And I I highly recommend it. At my last place, I was hand washing, and I was like, I'm putting ages through my life.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I've spent, a lot of time in front of the sink for sure.
Well, it's a good time to put the podcast on. So,
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
oh man, let's see. Um, you know, having kind of like I mentioned earlier, like been in this space too. What is some advice you give for like the next IT pros or people wanting to get into IT?
Man, just, you it is what you make of it, so it's like, you know, just trying to get into any part of it. Um, it is a tough space to get into, I think as well. Um, I think most jobs are, but, like, IT does tend to be one of those where it's like everyone wants for even the entry level jobs, they want experience, but no one's willing to give it. And so I think my advice mostly for like those people that are kind of already in it is like maybe take a chance on someone. Um, also, because I feel like I got lucky the way I got into it, and I just hope like other people get that opportunity too to get into the space because it is fun. And but it's also like I said, if you don't like learning, this is definitely not this sysadmin space is not for you. I mean, I think even if you're just a help desk tech, like that's you need to try and just go beyond your scope. Um, not for your company so much, but like just for yourself, like for your career. That's the only way you're gonna learn is if you try and do stuff, try and automate stuff. I think that's one of the best ways. Like anything you have to do more than twice, like try and automate it. Like that's kind of a good way to look at it. Um, but sometimes, more often than not, you're probably not going to be able to automate it. One of my favorite sayings is like, I could do something manually in 10 minutes or spend the next 6 hours failing to automate it. That's like one of my favorite sayings. Um, but you'll learn a ton in that 6 hours, though, even though you won't
What
do it. So,
what what made you get into automation? What were some tasks that you were like, I need to automate this?
man, just anything. I mean, whether it was like, we used TeamViewer at a prior org, like it's like I don't wanna have to, like, reconnect these clients every time they reinstall or something. It's like, "Alright, let's make a remediation script or something." Onboarding and offboarding, right? It's like
Yeah.
any
Yep.
any any of those tasks, right? It's like, get sick of, like, applying licenses. It's like so it's one of those things, it's easy. You're just clicking buttons and stuff, but it's like, man, when you think about how often you do it, it's like you could save yourself a good chunk of time just aut
You only gotta click that button once and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just, like, yeah, any kinda stuff. Anything you have to do more than twice, like I said, it's like figure out how to automate it. Because whether you do it or not, like I said, you're gonna learn something, and maybe you can take that and apply it somewhere else.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, right? Because if you go down the rabbit hole of learning that, then you uncover some other different avenues as well.
Yeah. And then just try and surround yourself with good people. Like, I mean, when you start working with people, like you end up learning like what type of people they are. Um, like I said, that's where I felt like I've gotten lucky. I've been around, especially my direct team. Um, at my last org, it's like we were able to accomplish so much in just a short amount of time, and like, um, I think that's important. It's like when you're close, when you enjoy working with the people that you're working with, like it just makes the job easier. But then it just makes like accomplishing stuff easier too. Um, I think one of my best times, like working at my last org, was moving our hardware from our SoCal office into a colo in Denver.
Oh.
Um, we uh we basically made the decision. We're like, you know what? We basically had two data centers, but the data center in SoCal was just in an office. Or I'm sorry, it was just in a closet within the office. You know, we had a Cisco mini chassis in there, you know, and then we had like our Nimble SAN there and stuff. And the power there was just getting ridiculous. It just like kept going out all the time. We were like blowing through these batteries and UPSs and stuff. And so we're like, we got to get this stuff some like out of here. But like, let's go to a colo where we know things are going to be up. And this can also be like kind of a backup scenario stuff. But we didn't really want to ship the stuff because we're like, well, yeah, I don't know if we could. How do we box this equipment up, especially a SAN with like hard drives and stuff? Like, how do we know this company is gonna like be gentle to this thing? So we were like, well, to minimize downtime at the same time, like, why don't we just drive it ourselves, like from SoCal all the way to Denver?
Wow.
Um, my buddy Tim, like that I worked with, we're like, all right, well, let's make a plan. Like, we'll fly down to the office, we'll get everything ready, we'll shut it down on Friday, and then just drive it straight overnight to Denver. So that's what we did. We packed the Cisco mini chassis up in the back, the SAN in this rental car, and I think we drove for like it was a little over 20 hours. I think I basically took the first leg, drove for like 10ish, 12 hours, stopped. I think we ate or something, and then he picked up and drove the rest of the way. Um, and that's also what kind of makes sysadmin areas just so much fun too. Is like you get in these weird situations where
Yes. Yes.
you gotta do stuff like this, and it's like, yeah, that was a fun time. That was one of the most memorable moments I had. Just we're just like, well, how do we minimize stuff? It's like, well, let's just do it ourselves. Just drive it across the country here ourselves.
It's true. I mean, because you're like, well, this other person might go crazy on the boxes. We might not even have like our equipment. So
Yeah, and yeah, it worked. We got it there, and I think that sand sat there the rest of its life and didn't even lose a drive. So we must have been gentle enough on it. So
yeah, man. And stories like that, right? It's like what makes it special, right? It's obviously not a part of the job description in some sense, but it's
yeah,
like, you know, it's just this unhidden territory of the job, you know.
yeah, and the like I said, it does. I like what the pandemic did by allowing us to maybe get additional jobs like across country, be able to work remote. I really do like that, but we have lost some kind of camaraderie around kind of building those relationships with your coworkers. Um, that I yeah, it's stuff like that that happens that like you don't really get that unless you like see each other like at conferences or something and have those experiences. I mean, we had some good times doing like office moves in SoCal. We moved an office at one point, so all of us went down there, and yeah, it's like we stay up super late, go out to eat, maybe get a beer afterwards. It's like you don't really get that unless you're like working together and stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, man. Those were some great memories that you got to establish. So
yeah,
yeah, I remember a crazy story. We had gone overseas because we had acquired a company over there, and we had like 30 laptops that's supposed to get autopiloted once we arrived there, but they didn't have autopilot set up,
oh
so all these
jeez,
devices weren't even in our tenant, and it's like 7, 8 o'clock, and it's our security engineer and myself. We're like, well, we gotta get them enrolled.
yeah, it's like all right, let's do it. Let's
So it's like 12 at night, and we're like, all right, here we go. It was like we got it done, but it's just like stuff like that. you get to rub elbows with your, like the people that you work with, and you're like, man, that was a crazy story at the time, but it makes for a good story.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely where I got close to my coworkers in my prior job was at my time then there, we I think every office moved to a new location, so we got to build it, like, from the ground up, and, like, um yeah, it's those late nights, like, I think every office move, there's at least 2, maybe 3 nights where we're there till 2 in the morning, just, like, you know, just doing whatever it was that came up because they decided last minute, it's like, "Well, these things gotta be over here now," and it's like, "Alright, you
Here we
just do it,
go.
you just do it, right?" Yeah.
Yeah, man. I, you know, if people get that opportunity, like embrace it. It might suck at the moment, but it's like it makes for a good story like this later on.
Yeah, and they end up being good learning opportunities too, because like you said, when you kinda get thrown into it, like, sometimes maybe you figure out something different that you wouldn't have otherwise because now I mean, as long as you're not going through it too rushed, as long as you're thinking about what you're doing, but sometimes, yeah, you end up doing it a little differently because 'cause you're like, "Well, I'm kinda strapped for time now. What if we did it this way?" Yeah, they're tough, but yeah, the good things come out of it for sure.